Hello and welcome back to Boxing Social in association with Betfred. My name is Ayman Khan, and we are days away from Amir Khan and Khan-Brook ending their decade-long rivalry this weekend. With me is the former European middleweight title challenger, former Amir Khan sparring partner, and current Ingle gym resident, Tyan Booth. Tyan, how's life treating you?
How we doing? You alright, yeah? Not bad, not bad. Uh, yeah, we're just like 3 days away, aren't we? So it's, the Khan-Brook Amir Khan fight. There's not much else to say, is there really? We've seen all the talking, so we need to just see what happens.
Tyan, you've always been one of these guys who, when it comes to fights like this, ones that's been talked about for a while, you've always been someone who's kind of been like, well, I'll believe it when they're there in the ring. But have you bought in yet to the hype? We've seen a lot of the back and forth between the two. But are you excited already? Or are you still kind of a little bit kind of waiting for them to get through the ropes?
It's probably 60-40, right now. 60 in favour of it happening. And there's still a little bit of doubt, but, seeing like Khan training and stuff like that, I don't know. I think he's put too much into it, to pull out at this stage. You know what I mean? I don't know, it's like, he looks a bit trimmed. He's a bit bruised up, so I think he's been taking a few beatings, in sparring, so I don't think he'd go through that, if he wasn't serious about actually fighting. You know what I mean? Terence Crawford's come all the way to England, so I think he is a bit serious now. He's come from America, Terence Crawford, so yeah, it looks like it's happening. But you never know, do you? But yeah, we'll see.
Amir taking himself to Terence Crawford camp, Bomac's camp, and positioning him there was an interesting choice, considering they've both fought Terence Crawford and both lost to Terence. So you'd think that Terence and Bomac would be able to impart the knowledge that they gained from scouting to like someone like Kell, and put that game plan towards Amir Khan's game plan. And then as well, also the fact that sparring someone like Terence Crawford, who's got that timing, kind of figures you out. If you can kind of have success against Terence Crawford and learn from him, you should be able to transmit that to your game against Khan-Brook too. Do you kind of see that as well in Amir Khan's kind of game plan, like learning from Terence? And do you think that's an advantage for him?
No, I don't really see it, I don't look at boxing like that, to be honest with you. When you've been in boxing for years and years, like, you don't always work out how it should, if you're not like Khan-Brook. I've sparred with Khan-Brook loads of times, head on body sparring, and I've never had a problem with him. Do you know what I mean? Never. And like, I've sparred with guys who weren't really that good, who gave me more problems than Kel did, and they didn't get to any level at all, any good level. But Kel, he won a world title, British title, and these guys, they didn't get anywhere near that level, and they gave me more problems, than Kel did. So yeah, I used to spar with Kel, and I used to hold my own all the time. Dominic Ingle, he used to message me, in the evening saying, sparring with Kel in the morning, yeah? Question mark. And I used to get a bit nervous, not like scared or anything like that, but just like, I know how good Kel is. And this is when he was like at his peak. When he was a world champ, or nearly a world champ. So Dominic would message me saying, sparring with Kel in the morning, yeah? And I'd think, oh, fucking hell. And I wouldn't reply, you know what I mean? So then about half an hour later, he'd send me another message, with a load of question marks. And I thought, I've got to reply, because I've got to see Dominic the next day in the gym. So I've got to reply, and I said, yeah, I'll be there in the morning to spar with Kel. So I couldn't really sleep, at night. It's not fear. It's more like, I've got to get it right, otherwise I could get messed up. Seriously messed up, because Kel was quite good, back in the day. I'm not really sure what level he's at now. He might still have it, but yeah, I wouldn't really get much sleep, the night before sparring with Kel. And then I go to the gym and do all right. I do okay. There was nothing to worry about.
Tyan, could you tell me when you're at the gym and you first had your interactions with Kel, what was Kel's initial feelings towards Amir like when you met him? Was there always that kind of rivalry between Kel when you got there? Did he always have Amir in his sights from the moment you met him?
No, I think he was trying to forget about him, because people kept talking to Kel about Amir Khan. Do you know what I mean? And I was stood next to Khan-Brook. This was about 8 years ago. There was an amateur show. Our gym, there was like an amateur show, and Khan-Brook went there. And I went there, and we were stood next to each other chatting. And this woman like came up to Kel, and she said, "When are you fighting Amir Khan?" And I could just see like the fucking, you know what I mean? The irritatingness, in his facial expressions, and he like mumbled, "I'm sick of answering that question," And that was like 8 years ago. So I think he tried to forget about it after a while. But when people keep asking him about it, it must be irritating for him. So now he's got the fight. Well, so it seems. So he can kind of like give people a specific date, instead of saying, "Oh, I don't know when I'm fighting him. I don't know when I'm fighting him." But I think he tried to switch off after a while, and go his own way, even though he kind of still wanted the fight in his mind. But yeah, it kind of irritated Kel. People asking him that same question all the time. It must be irritating, but it's kind of part of it, isn't it? Like, just say if you're an actor, yeah? You're an actor, but you're not really that good at actor. You haven't been in any good films and nobody really knows you. No one's going to be coming up to you asking you for photos, yeah? But if you're like a Hollywood actor, you're going to get like harassed, aren't you? But it's part of it. That's like a byproduct of the success. Like, I know some boxers, yeah? I don't know if I should say his name. There's a guy in the gym who was a world champ. And there was an amateur boxing show. And the kids, they were like walking past this former world champ, this faded world champ who went downhill in boxing. They were walking past him, to get to Khan-Brook. And I don't know how he handled it mentally. So my point is, like, people asking Kel, when are you fighting Khan? When are you fighting Khan? That's like a sort of like a byproduct, of his success. If he didn't achieve in boxing, no one would be asking him anything. And he wouldn't have made the money he's made. Yeah? He's made some nice paydays, hasn't he? He's had some nice paydays. But if he was just like a little shit boxer who didn't really achieve anything and didn't get paid, people won't be... It almost comes with a territory, don't it? It comes with a job, if you know what I mean.
We talked about, or you mentioned sparring Khan-Brook in the past, but there's an infamous, or at least from your point of view, like an infamous spar that you had with Amir Khan, where it didn't end all too well. Could you give me the full story, Tyan, about, from your perspective, about that spar? I was seeing a Q&A on Dom Ingle's Instagram the other day, and he said it was around the time of the Prescott fight, and that the spar with you dented his confidence going into that fight. I think you and was it Lee Noble went to spar Amir. Could you tell me that full story, like the days before and how that spar came about, and then what happened?
So I got the call to spar with Amir Khan, because he was fighting like a tall, sort of like rangy guy in that Brady's Prescott. So, Dominic asked me if I'd go and spar with him. And this is at a time when I was like living the life. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't messing around, staying up till all hours, eating chocolates. I was living the life. I was training twice a day. I was sparring with Johnny Nelson every day, Junior Witter when he was a world champ, Khan-Brook. A load of other talented fighters in the gym. I was going on the pads with Brendan every morning and Dominic Ingle, really living the life. So I was really on it back then. So when I got the call to spar with Khan, we went down to Bolton, me, Dominic and Lee Noble. I sparred with him, I think it was on a Monday. We did like 6 rounds. And he gave me £20 a round, which isn't really that much, is it? £20 a round. I messed him up, innit? I didn't mess him up, but I kind of like I schooled him, I kept it long, I used my reach, you know, I was young, fresh, alcohol free. I was really dedicated. So I kind of outboxed him, you know, kept it long. He was a few weights below me, so yeah. And then I think I went back like the next day, done the same thing. And he told his trainer or his manager like not to let me come back, you know, the next day, because I was supposed to be there for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, but I only did like 2 spars, you know, because of the way the spar was going. But then it's that whole thing in it of like my kind of style. Have you ever watched Johnny Nelson box?
Yeah.
It's a bit defensive. It's a bit not negative because it was quite an effective style. But if you're fighting somebody who's like a aggressive, like go forward, big punching fighter, you're not really going to want to spar with someone who's like defensive, like hitting from angles, moving around, lots of footwork, lots of head movement. So I can try and say, oh, he got rid of me because I battered him. But it might have just been like a stylistic thing, but I did kind of batter him. So it might have been both.
With that, then, Tyan, do you have that confidence in Kel's abilities because of the style that he has? Whilst you and Kel, you're different in terms of how you fight, but you've got kind of some of the classic kind of Ingle implementations to your game. Does that kind of give you the confidence that when it comes to those two styles meshing at the weekend, that Kel's kind of got one over here in Amir Khan because of how you were, from your perspective, able to handle him all those years ago?
But like Amir Khan, he's been in with like a slick southpaw, you know, in a Zab Judah. You know, you remember that fight? That was years ago. I think I can't remember what stage Zab Judah was at, you know, in his career. But he had that kind of like loose southpaw, you know, slick style. So yeah, I'm not really sure. Like, and Kell-Brook, he hasn't really got that style. You know, that I know I seen your interview the other day with Amir Khan, and you kind of mentioned me. You mentioned me, and you mentioned Kell, and you said that Khan has sparred with like me, and you mentioned somebody else who had that Ingle style, or was it just me?
It was Kel because they sparred. They sparred
Oh,
back
sorry, yeah,
3 rounds, didn't they?
yeah. But I'm saying like I don't think Kell has got that style. He hasn't. I don't think he's really got the style like that. I think that's more like the old school kind of style, you know, in the gym. And that was more like Brendan. You know, Dominic is more like modern. You know, he's more like, based on my observations. Brendan was more like, you know, getting you to like use your imagination, you know, and you know Roy Jones, Sugar Ray Leonard, you know how they used to go like that with their arms like that, like wind their arms back. Did you watch Sugar Ray Leonard against Hagler?
Yeah, I've seen the fight.
You know when he's like rolling his hands, Sugar Ray Leonard, and he's doing the shuffle and all that stuff. That was more like Brendan's kind of style, you know, that old sort of like loose switching hands down, you know, doing the shuffle. Yeah, Harold Graham, you know, Johnny Nelson. That was more Brendan's style, but I think it's starting to change a bit more. You know what I mean? So I'm not sure if Kell has got that style. You know, I don't know. It's hard to say, isn't it? Obviously, he's going to have it a little bit because he was in the gym from the age of 9. But I think it started to change as time went by.
Tyan, did I asked Amir kind of like when he come out transitioning from the Olympics success to the pro games, if he ever kind of considered going to the Ingle gym, and he said that he wouldn't really suited that kind of style. But I want to know if Brendan ever kind of spoke about Amir and kind of saw him having success in the pro game. To your recollection, did Brendan ever mention Amir?
As far as I'm aware, he never mentioned Amir Khan. He mentioned Mayweather. Brendan Ingle said that Junior Witter at his prime would have beat Mayweather, but I don't really know about that, you know. I don't really know, you know. Mayweather, a boxer called Sean B. Mitchell, you know, had that kind of loose style like Junior Witter, and Mayweather messed him up. So I don't know. Might have just been Brendan, you know, trying to hype his fighters up, which is, you know, Brendan, he used to like walk through the streets, you know, in town with Nassim Ahmed when he was young. And Brendan had one of those, those dictaphones. And Brendan used to shout, this guy, Nassim Hamid, is going to be the next world champion, the best fighter to ever come out of Britain. And Nas was like walking, with his head down like that, like embarrassed, ashamed. But that's what Brendan was good for, like really promoting his fighters. And Lee Wood, the WBA champ, and Cash Ali. Brendan took us to Nottingham one time, on a Saturday. And it was like really busy. We was in town, in the city centre. It was packed out. And we got our rucksacks and we put them in like a square, so it's like a boxing ring. And we was just like body sparring, and Brendan was taking us on the pads, and people was like walking by, looking like, what's going on here? What's going on here? And everyone started to like gather around, and watch. Watching us on the pads, throwing all these combinations from all these angles and doing the Ali shuffle and all that, and rolling our hands and, body sparring and all that. And then Brendan like put some gloves on people, and asked the general public to like throw punches at me, Lee Wood and Cash Ali. And we wasn't allowed to hit them back. We had to just move. We had to like move, use our reflexes and that. And it's good, man. Really good philosophy, from Brendan. Like, because people who don't know how to fight, random people in the streets, they're like the hardest people to fight in a way. That's what Brendan used to say. He said the guys who are the hardest to fight are the ones who don't know how to fight. Because they come in with all these mad combinations from all these angles, and they don't really know what they're doing. They haven't got like a trained mind, if you know what I mean. Boxers are taught how to throw like a left, right, left hook, double jab, right, left hook. But these guys in Nottingham city centre were throwing wild punches. Like Deontay Wilder, how he's all wild and that. So you don't know what to expect. So yeah, it's just... But Kel's had to deal with that for years, since the age of 9. So he's been in the gym for about 25 years, So he's dealt with every single style. Southpaw, orthodox, switch hitters, tall guys, short guys, heavyweights. You know what I mean? So he's dealt with it all. So we'll see if he deals with Khan.
Well, that's the unpredictability factor that I suppose common folk kind of bring to a boxer, and Brendan must have been kind of like getting them switched onto that. But something we can, or maybe you can predict for us, is potentially how the weight clause or the getting down to the weight might affect Kell. We've seen Kell kind of in the past get down to weight, look kind of drawn, and then on the night rehydrate and look a lot bigger than his opponents at times. He's got to weigh in at 149, I think it is, with penalties if he weighs over. And I believe it's on the night he can only weigh in maybe 10, 15 pounds more. So we saw what happened with the Terence Crawford fight. He didn't look great. And that fight ended how it ended. But how do you think getting down to that weight will affect Kell, Tyan?
It's going to affect him. It's definitely going to affect him, regardless of what, people say in interviews about how good they're feeling and how much food they're eating. Like, especially when you get older, and you're in your mid-30s, it's going to have an effect on you. And it's not about like what you've done for the past 2 months. It's about what you've done for the past like 5 years, 10 years. It's like, how have you lived a life? How have you lived your life outside of, boxing in between fights? If you ballooned up in weight, like, and then you crash that weight off, your body can't really handle it. So, we've seen it with kind of like Kid Gallard. We've seen him like fail to make weight twice, for the Kiko Martinez fight. And then, we've seen him get kind of messed up, didn't we? And, we've never really seen that before, have we? With him, I mean. In a fight or in sparring. So I think the weight doesn't have an effect, and Amir Khan knows that as well. So he's trying to use his A-side status, to try and like dictate and try and boil Kell down and try and mess him up. He's put little things in the contract, and he's told Khan-Brook that he can't speak about them. He can't speak about these little things in the contract, otherwise he'll get fined. You know what I mean? So he's trying to do like a Mayweather against Canelo, and he's trying to do that. He's the A side though. That's what I mean. He's the A side. I was always the B side. I don't want to bring it back to me, but I was always the guy who turned up, you know, at 2 days' notice. And I used to work in like dead end factory jobs, you know, trying to balance working full time and training and trying to get time off work and getting sacked because I've just kind of fucked the job off because they won't give me time off to go to Scotland, you know, and box at 3 days' notice. So it's been a bit of a, it's been a bit hard, but yeah, I don't know how we got back to talking. I don't know how I got to talking about me, you know. What was the question again? Oh, Amir Khan trying to boil him down. Yeah, that's it. He's got the privileges. You know, he's got the A side status, so you kind of make it work for you, don't you?
Tyan, you watched as well as many other people. I watched it, really enjoyed it. The gloves are off, which is like a staple for any big fight on Sky Sports. We've seen some great ones in Froch and Groves and others, but the one the other day was brilliant between Khan and Amir. But it looked from a lot of people's kind of taking that maybe Khan enjoyed kind of goading Kell and kind of getting those kind of concessions, or Kell to admit that he was the A side, and that's what getting that rise out of Kell. And I thought that was kind of interesting time, because the way that you told me before in the past is like the Ingle gym fighters are taught to kind of, you know, say things, insult people or each other in the ring, so that you develop that thick skin. But Amir seems to, and I think it works both ways, but Amir seems to be able to get under that thick skin of Khan-Brook.
Yeah, I know. Kel should be used to it by now. You know, all the years of being in that gym, and when I used to spar Kel, I used to talk to him, you know, and try and diss him and insult him. Because you might think, oh, that'll get him angry, so you'll get battered. But boxing don't work like that, you know what I mean? Anger doesn't work in your favour. You start loading up, you know, you take your mind off your game plan, you know, and it don't work. Unless you're like one of those kind of, you know, like, probably like maybe a Carl Froch, you know, they've got that aggressive go forward style, or a Mike Tyson back in the day. But you know, if you're like a little skillful boxer, if you start getting angry, you know, and your game plan just goes out the window. But yeah, I thought, I don't know, they say like a leopard can't change their spots, if you know what I mean. So it doesn't matter how long Kel was kind of put up with that kind of taunting in the gym. You know, he still might have it in him, you know, to be a bit emotional, you know, when Amir Khan puts it on him. Seems personal. Seems a bit personal, and Kel's getting really angry. But like I say, Kel should be used to this by now. I find Amir Khan quite funny. You know, the gloves are off. I was having a little laugh. You know, that little gloves are off with Johnny Nelson in the middle. I find it quite entertaining. But obviously, Kel don't see the funny side to it. 'Cause it's like Kel said, you know, if he loses, he's gonna have to walk around Sheffield with his head down. Yeah, bragging rights.
Couple of things away from this fight, and I'll bring it back to this fight, Tyan. An old foe of yours, Chris Eubank Jr., fought a former Ingle gym native in the form of Liam Williams. How did you assess that fight?
Shocked. Not really shocked, but surprised, because I don't know, I kind of looked at Liam Williams like he was like a really, you know, like, I'm not saying he's not, but I looked at him like he was a really tough, you know, aggressive, like, just, you know what I mean? You know, when you hear him getting interviewed and stuff like that, and I boxed Liam Williams as well. So when I seen him get put down with a jab, I don't know, I just felt like, but that's what we was talking about before, you know, like the weight. Don't know if he struggled at the weight or what, or he's just bored of boxing and he hasn't really got that hunger anymore. Because he said that when he used to train at the Ingle gym, he said he'd wake up in the morning and have 5 cups of coffee. You know, to give him that pick up, you know, to go to the gym and train. And he was struggling to get motivated. And then, like, you know, he'd go to the gym, train, not really that motivated or inspired. Then he'd go home because he used to like live next to the gym. So when he looks out the window, he's seeing the gym. Then he goes to the gym. Then he goes home from the gym. Then he's looking out the window at the gym. So that's all it was every day. And he's not from Sheffield, is he? So he hadn't really got any like, probably any like close friends here, you know, that he's known from years. So yeah, I don't know if he's just like lost it. And then he went to Adam Booth. And I know someone who trained at Adam Booth's gym as well. And he said there's no atmosphere there. It's not a good vibe. It's just shit banter, you know what I mean? Just not really not that good, not that. Yeah, I haven't really got that spark. So you know when you enjoy training somewhere, you perform better, don't you? You kind of, they say like a happy fighter is a better fighter and all that. You know, we hear these sayings all the time, don't we, in boxing, but they're kind of true, you know. When I used to love boxing, I used to live on the other side of Sheffield, yeah, and I was obsessed with Nassim Hamid. And I used to catch a bus to the gym, and I couldn't wait to get to the gym, you know, to like spar, you know, just get in the ring straight away and spar with like Johnny Nelson, Junior Witter, Khan-Brook, you know, all these guys. I couldn't wait. And like, you know, our buses, they stop every minute, don't they, you know, to let other people on the bus. And I was fucking thinking, hurry up. Like, I need to get to the gym, because if you don't get there at a certain time, all the main sparring partners, they go. Like, the main time to train was like 4 p.m. And, you know, if you didn't get there for that time, like, you'd miss out on the main sparring. And, like, the shitter boxers would come into the gym and you'd have to spar with them. I wanted to spar with the best. But, you know, when I had that kind of mentality, I was winning fights. I used to sit at home all day, you know, watching boxing. Mayweather, you know, when he was a super featherweight. You know, winning his first world title against Gennaro Hernandez. Have you seen that fight?
I haven't seen that fight, Tyan, I'll be honest.
Brilliant fight. But I'm saying I used to be a big fan of like Mayweather, Lennox Lewis, you know, all them guys. Bernard Hopkins. I was obsessed with boxing. So it made it easier, you know, for me to go to the gym because I loved it. And I used to win fights back in the day as well. But you know, when that love went, and I used to think, oh, I've got to go to the gym now. It's 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock, 3 p.m. I've got to go to the gym. You know, when you lose that motivation to train, you start to go downhill. So that might have happened to Liam Williams.
You're talking about interesting vibes and it being maybe not a great vibe for him. I don't know if you saw the video of Dominic Ingle and Khan-Brook training. I'm sure, obviously, they've got a great connection, but there was a video on Sky Sports of Kel wringing out the sweat from his top, and then Dom chugging it down, which was an interesting vibe, I suppose, to say the least. But I suppose your reaction to that, I guess, in a weird way, I suppose it's you know, it shows their kind of bond, but not something that a lot of people would be replicating, I suppose.
I think a boxer drank his own urine, you know, his own piss. But that's his own, innit? It's not someone else's. So I didn't see the bit of Dominic drinking it. I seen him holding the glass up. Did he actually drink the sweat? Yeah, I'm not into that. I'm a bit of a germaphobe, you know what I mean? I don't like shaking hands. You know, stuff like that. I'd rather just go like that. Yeah, do that. Don't like touching door handles. I like pull my sleeve down. You know, if I'm in a pub toilet and there's no tissue to like put on around the door handle, I have to go like that, you know, and open up the door. So yeah, drinking someone else's sweat, it's not really my thing. But it shows their little bond. Khan-Brook, he says that you know, Dominic, he's known him for years and years, so Dominic can tell, you know, if Kel's like overtraining, you know, just by looking at him, you know, and just like looking at his body language and that, he can tell. But like Terence Crawford, he don't really know Amir Khan, does he? They don't really know each other. Or Bomac. they don't really know each other, so they can't really, the Bomac. You don't really know when Khan's like overdoing it or underdoing it or whatever. So yeah.
Final question for me, Ty. Tell me, in your mind, how does this fight? Who wins, and how does this fight end? What do you see in terms of how it plays out? I'd presume you'd be picking Kel to win, but how does he get that victory?
No, I'm not really like that, I don't just pick somebody just because we train in the same gym as each other, do you know what I mean? I'm not really that guy, but yeah, it's like, in Callum Smith boxed Canelo, I didn't necessarily want Callum Smith to win just because he's from England and I'm from England and Canelo's from another country. I don't want this boxer who's brown to beat this boxer who's white just because I'm brown. Yeah? I'm not really like that. So just because we're from the same gym, like I don't really. I've said it before, when I used to box on shows with like people from the gym, depending on who the person was, sometimes I'd want them to lose, if I won, because then it will make my victory like sweeter, if you know what I mean. I know it's a bit selfish, it sounds a bit harsh, but everyone wants to be like the main man, don't they? People in the gym are talking and laughing and this and that, but it is like an individual sport. But naturally, you are going to like some people in the gym, and I like Kel. But I don't know if he's going to win. I don't know if the weight's going to really mess him up. At 35 years old, he's saying that he's like the Terminator, with his little metal eye sockets. But he still kind of got put down with a jab, you know what I mean? So it's. But we know Khan can't really take a punch. So I don't know, we'll see, innit? That's what I like though. I like not knowing. If I knew one was definitely going to win, I wouldn't be interested. I wouldn't pay £20, to watch it. So yeah, it's worth paying for because it's the unknown, isn't it?
So you won't be picking the winner just now, then, Ty?
I always visualize Khan getting knocked out, but then I think about Kel getting hit with a jab. And then the weight, like I just said, so it's hard to say, innit? What about you? You have to sit on the fence. Now you've got the big job at Boxing Social. Well done. Well done.
Appreciate it, Ty.
Stepping up.
Stepping up and stepping up with interviews and experiences as well too. No, I see what you're saying in terms of you throwing it back to me in terms of how I see the fight going. And even though I'm asking you to push a prediction, I completely the same with you. And in all honesty, I can wake up one day and say, I think Amir Khan's going to win. And then I can wake up the next day thinking Khan-Brook's going to win because there's so much at play. So yeah, whilst I was pushing you for one, I completely understand where you're coming from and being on the fence. And that's not from the point of view of who I think is going to win. It's just how genuinely I feel about the fight because of where both two kind of fighters are. I don't think you can really, from my point of view, can't confidently pick either fighter.
We don't need to, do we, really? We can just sit back and enjoy it and just, like, no pressure. You know what I mean? I put a bet on Khan-Brook. This is going to sound a bit embarrassing, but I put a bet on Khan-Brook to beat Terence Crawford, So I lost £200. But then I also put a bet on Terence Crawford to win. So I kind of tried to edge my bets and it kind of messed up. Even though Terence won. He won by stoppage. But I betted on him winning on points. So, when he hit Kel with the jab and Kel was kind of all over the place, I knew my £200 was out the window. So no more betting.
I think that's a great place to leave it, Ty. No more betting. I'm not a betting man myself either, but Ty, it's been a pleasure speaking to you as always. I could speak to you for a lot longer, as you know that as well. I'm sure we'll pick this up again very soon too. But thank you so much for speaking to me and Boxing Social, Ty.
Yeah, thanks for that. Appreciate it.